What's up? What's up? If you guys ever watch, let me make sure my mic is good though. Yeah, we go. Scary movie. You remember that? Let me fix this real quick. So, really, this stream is for you guys. Yeah, I really do hope that there is engagement and or at least attendance. Hopefully, I'm doing this at a time that is respectable for your schedule because this stream is really about all about you guys. Live Q&A. Yeah. Of course, I have some things I do want to discuss myself in terms of the the mistakes that I see today still being made, despite how much I could say something or I know someone else is saying something. But this is really for you guys. So hopefully you guys tap in. If you don't tap in on the live, then hopefully you guys get a little bit more active in the comment section, especially if you're on the replay. That way you can get a little bit more of your concerns, your questions. Maybe you feel anxious. You can get all that, solved and answered immediately. That way you can go through this process of home ownership and find your way through it eventually. Because, I mean, if you're a first time home buyer, today's your live stream. Like, yeah, I mean, granted, I would say a lot of the live streams are for the, just home buyers, but this one I would say really is for the first time home buyers, those that really want to get into home ownership and just trying to figure out how is it that they can take advantage of this market, maybe even save a couple of $1,000. Like, I mean, shoot, if you don't like that, then boy, then you know what I mean? If you don't like that, then I don't know how to really help you. But, we're going to really be talking about those biggest mistakes. So hopefully you guys haven't experienced or know anyone that experienced these terrible mistakes that some individuals still make to this day. Like, I'll give you one. Not too long ago, I helped one of my clients purchase, and they were in the process of transitioning. I wouldn't say transitioning jobs, but they were moving from one state to another, obviously here in North Carolina. And we were having a discussion. And essentially she was like telling me, "Hey, I don't like my job right now." And I got a better job offer. And I was like, well, if you want this to still close on time and you still want to be, moving in on your expected date and not doing the hotels or the Airbnb thing anymore, then you may want to stay put up until, the close is finalized. Then at that point in time, you are free to do whatever you want. But I found out the hard way. Um, I found out the hard way. The lender found out the hard way that, yeah, they didn't listen to me at all. So they made the shift, and of course, there's consequences. And so, immediately, I got not yelled at, but it was like a, like, come on, why didn't you tell me one of those scenarios? And I was like, well, we had this conversation, and I'm not gonna stop you from doing what you want to do. So. But these are the mistakes I'm still seeing people make in 2025, and it's unfortunate that some people still are making these mistakes. Although I know it's all over the internet. In fact, I know realtors are telling their clients themselves. Well, I hope they are, but if not, then hey, you live and you learn, right? Maybe next time that same mistake won't be made twice, and if it is made twice, then what's this whole good old saying? Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, kind of thing. So. But we're also going to be looking at national housing data to give you an idea. It's always important to know what's going on locally, but of course, we're looking at things from the hindsight. So, like, covering the entire housing market. If you want me to dive deep into a market specifically, again, just let me know in the comments. Share that information. Like, hey, look into this market, and I'll be more than happy to break it down for you just to see what's going on there. Because if I don't know about it off the top of my head, then of course I have to break it down because I only work in North Carolina's market. Then we're going to, of course, look at what's happening with rates, which, fun fact, is really good news. That's all I'm going to say. When it comes down to rates, seems like there's good news that's on the horizon, but we'll actually see what happens. I think we have a week, maybe a week and some days before we get another official, right? Quotations. Don't quote me on this one, but another cut. So we'll see what actually happens with that. I don't think that's gonna help affordability. So if you're really banking on home prices coming down, you just need more supply. And I'm gonna be honest with you, builders, homeowners, even corporate investors right now, they're all manipulating that. Because again, they all hold a supply. So it's only the people that have to move that are absolutely moving. And so that's the supply that essentially goes on the market and then gets picked up by someone else. But what you really want, if you really want prices to come down, you want houses to stay on the market and not get sold. But that's not the case. Not unfortunately. I mean, it depends on what side you're on. And then, of course, we'll look at some buyer strategies as well. I know last week we talked about which the best time was to purchase a home was in the summer. I think, at least here in this market, in the Raleigh market, this week is technically the best, quotations, right? Again, the best week to purchase a home based off of whatever data that they used. That was actually by Realtor.com, that article that I saw there. And it was a bunch of different states that was on that map in itself that just shared with you the different type of times to go ahead and purchase a home, at least the best time to purchase a home, which go ahead and take a look at that or go watch the stream to get a better understanding, because again, I did dive deeper into that. But where are our rates right now? Let me go ahead and share my screen so we can see. Well, you can see, the national housing market in terms of prices, right? Well, I guess we'll take a look there. We're saying about 360. So if you're in the market with prices below that, then I think you're in a good place. You're in a better position than many. I'll tell you that. But here, let's check out rates, because this is what's really going to start to change over the course of time. And I know this is what everyone is waiting for. Everyone wants 4% interest rates, 3 or maybe 2, but will we actually get it? Only time will tell. But here's what's rates. Really just taking a peek at the 30-year fix. That's what I generally like to pay attention to only. Even though you can look at these other different products, but the 30-year fix is like really my baseline and really my guide. Because even though you see, let's see, a 30-year for FHA is at 6. Of course, it's all going to incorporate, your personal circumstances, your credit, your income, your debt to income, all that good stuff that a lender is going to take into consideration gets accounted for. So it's always a good baseline to use, but don't use it as verbatim as far as this is exactly what you're gonna get. Maybe sometimes you might get better depending on the lender and what they're able to find in terms of, what quotes are already out there. But that's where we are at. You guys saw what the national housing prices were, so the next thing I want to show you is, and I should have pulled it up, is the inventory, because as I mentioned already, inventory is one of those things as a buyer that you really want to go higher and higher and higher. Just give me 1 second. So, if I did this correctly, there we go. So this is the inventory, active inventory. So anything in green, let me take myself out of here so you guys can see it completely. Anything you see in green is above pre-pandemic, right? Says it right there. So these are the states that are essentially pre-pandemic, which means in every single one that you see that's in this little teal green color, whatever you want to call it, there's a possibility that you can go ahead and get a bargain. If you really want one, I mean, you can, by all means, you don't have to bargain with nobody. You can just go in there, get your crib, get your house, and go about your business. But in these areas, this is where you're going to get the best, in my opinion, bang for your buck. Of course, in these other areas, these are still below your pandemic. And of course, we're talking like 2020, so anything prior to that. And yeah, so all of these states are still below it, which really is a good amount of it, right? It's majority, I would say, of the country in itself in comparison to what's above pre-pandemic. So I'll go ahead and zoom out just so if you really want, you can take a screenshot. This is actually by Resi Club, so you should be able to find this with no problem on the web if you really wanted to. Yeah, let me leave that there for a second. But this is what you essentially want. You want most of these states to be in this green box if you really want prices to come down, or at least you want whatever state that you're in, you want that to be in this green box and be pretty high, in order for you to really experience the prices coming down. All the time I see individuals, they mention, I'm waiting for prices, I'm waiting for prices, I'm waiting for prices. And it's like, well, you got to wait for inventory before prices. So supply and demand. But that was just a quick synopsis of what I want to share with you. If you guys are not familiar with what we do here, we talk about everything you need to know as a home buyer. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, buying for the second, third, fourth, maybe you're trying to get into the investing side of things, this is the place that you essentially want to be in. If you're not, maybe you've come across this unexpectedly and you're like, wow, this is actually some good information. Share it with someone that that may be in the process. The only way that we're able to help as many people as we want and to be able to accomplish our goals here that we have set, which is making sure that home ownership, that home ownership rate goes up. Because I kid you not, I was just reading, and this is just me ranting at this point, right? I was reading how corporate investors right now, as we all know, institutional investors, they're in the space. They may not be in the space as heavily as many are stating, but they do have a sort of way of impacting what an individual can purchase, because they're taking supply off of the market, which in fact, a lot of those individuals now, the institutional investors, they're selling a lot of their inventory to go ahead and do build to rent. Honestly speaking, this is just me talking at this point. I really do see how the United States is probably going to become a renter nation at some point in time, which is unfortunate to say, because it's like, man, home ownership, I'm pretty sure it's a part of American dream. So it's like, man, to take that away from someone, that just seems pretty crazy to me. Maybe not you, as someone who doesn't necessarily want to purchase. So, if that's the case, then, so be it. But that's kind of where I see things heading. And so I'm trying to protect that as much as possible because it's a matter of time. If you look at, I wish I had pulled it up beforehand, the home ownership rate. Let me see if I still have it on my computer. The home ownership rate in just general, in terms of where people even want to, or what's their thought process, what they're thinking, it's pretty low. And I was like, it's only going to get worse, and it's going to get lower and lower in due time, right? And that's just something that I can't control. I can only provide you with the information to help you out. And so don't let that get ahead of you. But that's what we're doing here, right? So we do this. You could catch it on Wednesdays, typically every other Wednesday. I'm up here, so you guys could do that. Let me know where you guys are tapping in from, so that I know, maybe next time I know exactly what markets I need to cover. Trying to multitask is quite interesting. Trying to find. Okay, here it is. So it's not the home ownership rate, but it at least shares with you. This is what fuels me, literally. Right, seeing this is what gives me. Whoa, we didn't want to do that. Seeing this is what gives me the fuel to keep going and be able to show up on a consistent basis. Otherwise, if this was going up, there would be no need for my voice to be heard. Because y'all got to figure it out. But the probability of buying, is literally, I think I took this a couple months ago. As you guys can see, that was a survey taken in February of 25. 30% people believe that they're going to go ahead and purchase a home in the future. 30%. I mean, God almighty. Like, that is horrible. It's like, man, that number should really be more closer to 70. but not something that I can control. I can only provide you with the information and hope that you guys act on it. If not, then so be it. Let me know where y'all tapping in from, though. A better question that I have for y'all, though, is at least this is what I get. Is it a bad idea to buy now if you have student loans? Depends. Because if you are actually in the medical field, there's like a loan specifically and how they value, or at least how they look at your student loans, which really doesn't do too much damage to your qualifications as far as even how much you can purchase. So I think it first and foremost depends on your specific circumstances. I would definitely say don't shoot yourself in the foot before speaking to the professional and seeing exactly what they say. 9 times out of 10, if you have a lot of student loan debt and you're unable to, let's say, you have like literally no way of paying it back because the amount that you bring in is like not nearly, so maybe not even half of what you bring in on a monthly or yearly basis. I should say not monthly, on a yearly basis. Then maybe be concerned, but I would definitely say yes, it's possible. I mean, it happens all the time. I've worked with people in the past that literally have student loans that they probably are not paying right now simply because they are able to. I forgot what they called the proper term for it, but it's like paused essentially. Right, they're able to pause it, but the lender still considers it. So even if you do that, the lender's still going to look at that to say, all right, well, this is that needs to be accounted for at the end of the day. So that is a question that I do see, and I do get it myself because, I mean, if you don't have student loans, man, God bless you. Because I think, yeah, for the people that don't have student loans, because I mean, honestly, it's all of us, including me. So it's just something that we all have to deal with. But since we had nothing come into the chat just quite yet, I'll go ahead and roll off the very first mistake that I see, which is starting your search before getting a full pre-approval. With the show of hands, or just let me know in the chat. Drop a fire. Drop the raising hand emoji. How many of you have looked at a home before actually getting a pre-approval? I can almost guarantee it's like 90, I would even say 95% of people do that. And it's fair, right? Take a look to see what's already out there to see if you can even want to step in there. But how much can you actually afford? That's where the pre-approval really comes into handy. So if you start searching, that you may be looking at homes that's outside of your budget. And so you're gonna you could hurt yourself in the long run when you're like, these aren't the houses that you really wanted, or at least would like, simply because what you were looking at, your expectations were set in a different manner. So the one thing I would definitely say is go ahead and look, but just more or less look to see like the neighborhood. This is what I always tell everyone that's looking to purchase a home. Focus on the area you want to be in before the house. Because I mean the houses aren't going to move. I mean, we can get the houses any day, any time, but it's the area that you or I cannot control. So, in my personal opinion, just based off of what I've experienced and what I've seen and just how I've navigated many different families, focus on the neighborhood, the area that you want to be in first. Make sure it checks all your boxes. Is it in the school district you're looking for? What's your commute to work? Where are the amenities, right? These are some of the things that I would definitely say, you should know. At least you should be looking at to identify whether it's a good neighborhood for you or not. And then we can look at the homes because, I mean, well, how different can a home really be? And if it is really different to the point where you're like, this can work, most times what most individuals are going to do at least is start renovating it. I remember vividly, there was a client of mine. This was maybe 2-3 years ago. They saw this house, loved it, area, everything checked off. They were like, yep, we're going to move forward with this one. But they just told me, like, yeah, next time you come into this house, if you ever do, Ronnie, it's not going to look like this at all, because they already knew what their vision was for the home because they saw exactly what they wanted to lay out. But go ahead, don't start searching for the home before getting your pre-approval, which then leads me to my next point. Don't skip it at all, the pre-approval. Getting it early in the phases is so important. So important. I mean, if you get it while you're, or at least let's just put it like this: if you try to get a pre-approval when you see that home that you really love, just know you're probably not the only one looking at that home, right? So that's why it's important to have it prior, because you know that the underwriting, or hopefully it's been underwritten, or at least some sort of documentation was taken into consideration. That way you know that you're not exceeding your budget. You know that you'll have a less hard time, right, with when it goes to underwriting, and you can actually close on that home. If you wait too long, there's two things that can happen. You probably won't get the home. The home probably will get, and when I say you probably won't get it, you probably yourself won't be able to close on it. Or someone else just sneaks right under you, a little bit more prepared, and gets it. Or maybe you actually you could roll the dice and probably get lucky entirely. But most offers that I'm submitting, at least nowadays, have a pre-approval, right? That's one of the requirements that the sellers love to see, right? Can this person, even before I accept this offer, or at least try to go pending on this offer, is this someone that can actually purchase this home? I mean, the worst thing that can happen for a seller, at least, is accepting an offer and then you find out, what, 2 weeks later they can't even close on it. Now you've not wasted, but you've taken 2 weeks of time out of your marketing to be able to find that right buyer, and that right buyer probably just went ahead and chose another home. So something to really think about to a certain degree. So don't skip your. So we just said, don't start your search without getting a pre-approval, and don't skip it. Don't skip that step. Get your pre-approval before you even start. That way, you're all ready to go. And if you do see a home that does check your boxes, then you can go ahead and submit an offer and don't have to wait, because a lender don't bank on them to turn over a pre-approval for you within 24 hours. Not everybody's gonna work that quickly. Another mistake I see, and you can do this. I mean, it's not the end of the world, in my opinion, if you don't do it. But I think it's always good to know what's out there. Is not comparing different lenders, right? So if you want to really go to the point where you're comparing the loan officers, then that's just, how does that person professionally work? But when I say lenders, I'm talking about like big banks, maybe even, mortgage brokers and credit unions, right? So looking at those like that is what's, I think, more important, because they're all going to offer something different. I said I have I do have a personal story that I could share. Yeah, I'll share it. I actually, because, and this is why I'm saying to do it. It's because I literally did it myself. And when I did it, it was one lender that was literally trying to, and this is why it's important, because there's one lender that was trying to, not trying, but they already quoted me for like a certain amount of dollars for closing costs. I don't remember the number, but I looked at the number immediately and was like, excuse me. And because I see so many closing disclosures, and I've helped many people in different price ranges. I mean, from literally, I don't think we've ever helped anyone in the 200s yet. From the 300s to the 700s, literally, I've seen closing disclosure, and I've seen what some people are putting down for their closing costs. So when I got this closing disclosure, or not even a closing disclosure, but an estimate that essentially they gave me as far as what the cost would be to be able to do business with them, and I was like, excuse me, I'm not gonna even question what they got going on over here. I want no parts. But that's just because of I've seen too many to know, like, all right, this doesn't make sense right now. But for someone that doesn't see those on a regular basis, you may think that's normal. Let's say your closing costs could be, let's just say, roughly between an additional 2 to 3% of the cost of the home. So whatever dollar amount that you're looking for in terms of that home, just look at it as like another 2 to 3%. In addition to, of course, your closing costs. So take that with dope. Take that with that. In the meantime, before I continue, I mean, the room is pretty silent today. Before I continue, do y'all have any questions? No? Maybe not? If y'all don't want to get caught up in these mistakes, the best thing that you can do, and I actually have the link right there. You guys can see at the bottom, right? But no, just reach out to me, and whether you even want a 15-minute consultation just to see where you're at and see what you can do, that's the best way to do it, is to reach out to me personally. And whether you're in the North Carolina market, I can help you directly. But if you are not in the North Carolina market, I will be sure to connect you to one of our agent partners that can go ahead and spend a little bit more time and educate you on that market specifically, and of course guide you in terms of how to prepare yourself for that market. But definitely go ahead and do that, especially even if you're 3, 6, a year out. Plenty of people I've spoken to are a year out. And so it's, we put them we create a game plan to make sure that they know what they have to do, just so they don't screw themselves up for when it's time. This mistake here, I love it. So this is another one. I know the room is dead right now, but raise your hand or at least comment, do something to let me know or let yourself know. Maybe you can come back to this later and be like, oh, this was me. How many of you have received or at least, how many of you have received a pre-approval or saw somebody get a pre-approval and say, oh, I have X amount of dollars to spend, which is true. But if you actually have your own budget in mind, your own monthly budget, generally speaking, you probably shouldn't spend the maximum that you're approved for. If you, by all means, want to, then go ahead. But there's a chance that you're forgetting about your HOA, your taxes, your insurance. What else? Interest that goes into it. I don't think I'm missing anything else. Right? I actually am missing a big one. Maintenance. Right? So, sure, you can spend your maximum budget. Just know you're going to really stretch yourself really thin, because you're going to have all these other things that's going to pop up inevitably, right? Nothing that we all can't control. And so that's why I'm just sharing with you guys all. Just, if you don't have to exceed, no, don't hit the max. If you can avoid doing that, then you're being in a better position. But if you absolutely have to, then knock yourself out. If you're overpaying, bless you. And totally, bless you. You do what you have to do. Hey, some markets require that. 2020, that's all everybody was doing. But were you really overpaying? If you really look at it in hindsight, you overpaid, and then you literally probably double the amount of the home value. So you overpay, but it's like, but if you're overpaying now, depending, of course, what market, maybe, I know the Northeast and Midwest are two markets right now that are going through a lot of seller markets or competition. So maybe that's where a lot of the biddings are going. But other than that, it shouldn't be happening anywhere else. So don't do it. I talked about the job moves already earlier, so I won't talk about that. But this next one I have is making large purchases. This one I always mention to my clients, honestly, for anyone that's watching right now, whenever you're under contract, not even under contract, when you're ready and serious about purchasing a home and you've been pre-approved already, at that point in time, do not purchase anything large. I'm more or less talking about, don't open any credit lines, don't purchase any furniture, don't buy a new car, anything that's going to hurt your debt to income ratio. Don't do it. And if you absolutely have to do it, the best thing that you can do is reach out to that loan officer that gave you that pre-approval and really have that conversation. Like, hey, this is what's going on. Is this possible? Is it going to hurt me? What is it that I can't even do? right? That's your best course, because if you do it, if you do it, purchase any of these things or any large item, they will find out. I actually spoke to a lender partner of mine, and he mentioned to me how they have like a credit monitoring service 24/7. They're literally checking your, not them manually checking it, but they have something that's like literally checking, monitoring your credit to make sure that nothing has changed. And if something does change, that they do get alerted. So there's a possibility you try to make a change, they're gonna know before you even say something. They just waiting for you to tell them. Oh man. But yeah, don't make any large purchases for the sake of keeping everything together, and so you don't hinder yourself in going through all of the cost of inspection, putting down appraisal money, going down and putting a deposit down just to lose all of that just because you made a large purchase. That is unfortunate. Remember earlier I talked about a client of mine who walked into a home and they imagined the home in itself. They were like, yeah, great home, but we're going to take all this stuff out. I'm sharing that to say don't focus on the cosmetics. Like cosmetic being paint, right? Scratches on the wall. Like that, to me personally, you can focus on that stuff, but is it really that important? Like, I don't know about y'all, but I really want to know how's the foundation, the electrical, how's the HVAC, how's the roof, how's the plumbing. Those are the five major facts. I mean, five major components of a home in itself. Right? I want to know those things because each and every single one of them is like a $10,000 ticket easily. Right? Maybe a little less depending on what needs to be repaired and hope. But if we're talking a full replacement, yeah, we're looking at $10,000 plus. So I really want to pay attention to the major things, the minor things. You can repair over time. But if you really want to focus on the cosmetic things, you're gonna find something in a home, in every single home essentially, unless even brand new homes. Honestly, brand new homes aren't even perfect. So that's the one thing I would say. You can focus on, cosmetic, but personally speaking, it's best to just look at the major structural items of the home because that's what's gonna really make a dent to your pocket. Let's see. I talked about property taxes, insurance already. Ah, I like this one actually. So, this isn't so much of a mistake. This is more of a tip, I would say. So, if you're watching this at this point in time, kudos to you because this is a gem that I learned, and unfortunately, I didn't practice it myself because there's so much going on that I've completely forgot, and it would have helped, right? It would have saved a couple of dollars, but whenever you're going under contract, especially in this environment that we're in with interest rates, whew. I should tell my buddy. Nah, he's good. He's good. Yeah, he should be good because yeah, they taking care of that rate for him. But if you're not going for new construction, the chances are you're gonna have to get a new loan, right? And this environment that we're in right now, where interest rates one week is up and the next week it goes down and next week it goes back up, right? There's extreme volatility going on there that you don't want to get caught into. So when you get your pre-approval, unfortunately, you can't lock the interest rate that they're essentially quoting you at that point in time. You can only lock it. Well, I shouldn't say you can't. Most lenders are not going to allow you to. If they do, please let me know who in the heck allowed you to do that because that's a good partner right there. But most of them are going to wait for you to get under contract, right? Once you go pending, then it's recommended to lock in that rate. And the importance of locking in that rate. This is a tip. This is not so much of a mistake I see because many buyers don't know about this. Many buyers. The key thing with locking in that rate is, of course, if the rates go up, you're protected. And but if you don't have that, if you don't have the if you don't have the rate locked in, your monthly payment is subject to change. With whatever it is that they're quoting you at the current time. And so, quick tidbit: if you are purchasing and you're under contract and you haven't locked in your rate, go and do so, especially in this market. It will help you. You'll thank me later. But if it is, and it's one of those scenarios where if it does go down, you of course you want to have it where I think they call it rate lock with the float down option. So they allow you to lower rate, but you're locking in essentially whatever it is that you're locking in at. So take what you want with that information, but don't say I didn't tell y'all. See, this is why tapping into these, whether it's live or even on the recordings, I personally think, and I could be biased because I'm spending my time, effort, my voice in doing so, but it's valuable in doing it just because you really don't know what I'm gonna drop. Like that wasn't even part of the plan to drop anything like that, talking about locking in your rate. But it's just what I thought about at the time in the moment. So the next one is the underestimating of your closing costs. As I mentioned earlier, I would say set aside an additional 2.5, 3% for your closing costs. That way, you aren't surprised necessarily if you do have to dish out additional funds just to go ahead and get closed. So go ahead and do that. In fact, you can even do better, right? Not you specifically, but if you really wanted to position yourself to not be surprised at closing, you can always tell the lender to give you a loan estimate, which will kind of give you an idea of what your cost to close will be at the end of the day, if I said that properly. But let me know right now if you guys have any questions. I have to take a break. My voice has to take a break, more or less. Y'all got me talking for real. I'm saying y'all got me talking as if y'all in the room right now. I'm talking. Is that better? No, nothing. So, I actually did this poll on my channel in itself. So, depending on when you're watching this, hopefully you can still see the poll. But it was one question I had, which is, what's the biggest thing stopping you from buying your first home? So, out of the 6 votes that popped up, no one said interest rates, which I was like, huh. But everyone's complaining about interest rates. No, and I was like, okay, well, that's fair. And then high prices, right? It's between high prices, the fear of making a mistake. So if you're watching this right now, then I'm covering majority of the mistakes that are being made, and those were general. I'm gonna talk more specifically about 2025 rates. 2025 mistakes that I still see buyers making today. So interest rates, no one was really like saying that's what's stopping them, which I was like interesting. But the 3 big ones were high prices, fear of making mistakes, and something else, which I don't know what that something else is. If if you have an idea what that something else is, please let me know in the comments on the replay, or let me know in the chat box. That way I know what else to prepare y'all for, because if it's not interest rates, if it's not the prices, and if it's fear of making a mistake, I think that's anything, then I'm not quite sure. But let me know if any of this is helpful at all. Are you guys enjoying hearing what mistakes are currently, or at least what mistakes have? Are y'all enjoying? Why can't I speak right now? Are y'all enjoying hearing what mistakes were made in the past by previous buyers? That way you can prepare yourself. Let me know. That way I can do more of these. If it's helpful, then why not do more of them? It might be something that y'all find valuable. So we'll talk more and more about mistakes. If you really, really, really want to prevent yourself from making any sort of mistake, the best thing to do is partner with a real estate agent. And so if you're looking to purchase in North Carolina, whether you're looking in the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months or more, then by all means, reach out, right? There's nothing wrong with having a game plan so that you can go ahead and make sure that you're in position to purchase when your time arrives. But if it's not North Carolina, I got you covered. Still, we have partners all throughout the United States, right? That have very similar practices. We may not do exactly the same in terms of business practices, but we are the service, right? The service is where it's all at, and you don't have to worry about that. That's where I've vetted and have done tremendous amount of work to identify, agents that have. I try to find people who have very similar, just because I feel like, if they're coming across me, then let's try to pair them up with someone that's very similar, takes care of their client, and maybe even better, hopefully. That way you get that experience. Also, before we go into the 2025 mistakes that I see, if you don't like these live streams, please let me know. I may have a better option for you. I have a newsletter that I actually release every Friday where it sums up this, I would say, live stream to a certain extent, maybe in 3, 4 bullet points. And of course, I go and talk a little bit more about other things. But here on the live stream, we can get a little bit more detail. We can get a little bit more personal, and we can get a little bit more what um, I said detail and I guess detail and personable, right? In identifying certain situations. So if you really don't like this, then maybe the newsletter is a better fit for you. However, let's go ahead and talk about the mistakes made in 2025. So the very first one I have, which is waiting for rates to drop, which by the poll that was taken on my channel, it doesn't seem like anybody is waiting for rates to drop. But every time I look, every time I speak to someone, that's literally all I hear. So either somebody's lying or lying to me or just lying on the web. I don't know what it is, but don't wait for rates to drop. I mean, literally, I don't have any forecasts in front of me. Yeah, I don't have any forecasts in front of me, but they're literally forecasting the rates to still be in the sixes. I think it's more like lower sixes all throughout next year as well. Unless something obviously happens and the entire world goes to gangbusters, then there's a different scenario that's gonna happen there. But as of right now, everything is supposed to be around the 60s. So the best thing that you can do if you're waiting for rates to drop is to literally make the rate drop yourself by going towards new construction, getting the seller to contribute towards your rate buy down. Maybe you buy down the rate yourself, right? You got to be intentional at this point in time. If you're going to wait for rates, you'll be waiting for quite some time. And maybe you have time. And if that's the case, enjoy. I don't know how long you're going to be waiting, though. So, and doesn't seem like these prices are going to slow down either. So that's the real big, push and pull situation that a lot of individuals are going to go through. Ignoring builders' incentives is another big one. So, I made a video on this. Like, literally, don't buy an existing home in today's market. It really doesn't make sense. Not when you can get an interest rate that's lower than whatever the market is giving you, but some builders are actually paying for your closing costs as well. So, and it's a no-brainer to me, but you do as you please. In fact, I'm going to read you some of them. I'm not going to tell you who the builder is just because the builders are always changing. And so I don't want somebody watching this 3 months from now and be like, yo, you said this builder was given. No. If you personally want a list, you can always reach out to me, and I'm more than happy to provide you with what I know that's going on in the North Carolina market and keep you up to date on it. That's the key piece there. Right? I'm able to keep you up to date. But as many times as these builders, it's like they change their incentive every quarter. So, but we have one builder, right, giving a 3.99 interest rate with a 7.6 ARM. And that's, of course, with a 10% down. So, they're asking for a little bit more of a down payment in order for you to get that. Which, if you do not know what an ARM is, it's adjustable rate mortgage. I'm not going to say stay clear of it. I'm just going to tell you, know exactly what you're walking into if that's where your mind or what makes sense for your pockets or that's just what works for you. Because if you don't know what it is, and after 7 years, you get a nice little sticker shock, you're either gonna be upset or you're gonna be really happy. It all depends. But I just mentioned, hey, just know, and I know a lot of people nowadays. I see builders, more and more builders are offering that incentive. Instead of it being fixed entirely, they're offering, arms, which essentially arm is what got a lot of people in trouble back in 2008, right? They were given these risky loans, so unfortunately, hopefully that doesn't repeat itself. That will be very sad if that literally happens all over again. But just know what it is, because you're going to see it out there, unfortunately. But another builder is giving a 3.99 interest rate for an FHA, specifically with a 5.1, meaning for the first 5 years it's fixed, and then after that every year it changes depending on where the interest rate is. But this builder here, they're saying you don't have to pay anything for closing costs, of course, only on select homes. Or the other option is you just go a 4.99 fixed rate FHA for 30 years and you'll be good, right? You can wipe your hands, you can go ahead but go about your business, and that's fine. We got another one here. They're giving you $5,000 towards closing costs, as well as a fixed rate below 5%. They didn't really specify what that rate is. They just said a fixed rate below 5, so it could literally be 5. This builder is offering home buyers no interest payments for the first 7 months. That's not bad, because if interest is like, if you're making any sort of, whenever you get a home, if you look at the amortization, what do they call amortization? What is it? I don't want to say it's a calculator, but it's pretty much for the first 7 years you're paying more towards interest. So to see this builder allowing home buyers to buy a home with no interest for the first 7 months, that's an easy way to tackle that principal payment, and double up on it, honestly. And if you don't know, now you know. That's actually one of the biggest problems with, I think, home ownership, is the fact that for the first 7 years you're paying nothing but interest. Sure, you're paying down your principal just slightly, but you're paying mostly interest, which is that's why it doesn't make sense for you to move every year. If you're purchasing a home, you really got to sit in that home for a little bit in order for you to, if you're going to sell it, have some sort of profit. Otherwise, you're just dooming yourself at the end of the day. Another builder is offering a 2-1 rate buy down. Oh, I'm surprised they're still doing those. You really don't see those anymore, because most builders are just paying for that rate specifically to just go ahead and market that. But this builder is a 2-1 rate buy down with paying your closing costs, and they said free design upgrades, which is pretty neat, right? So these are all the incentives that I still see people ignoring today. I get it. Some builders may not have the quality of work that you're looking for or that you want. This is why you do your inspection. It's best to do a pre-drywall inspection and then do a post-drywall inspection to make sure everything is the way you would like it to be. Because once those drywalls go up, it's hard. It's real hard to do any inspection to see what's going on in between those walls. Unless if your inspector is willing and able to put some holes through the walls and then patch it up, which kind of is moving backwards, and I doubt the builder is going to be happy about that. So that's why I say pre-drywall if possible. And if it is post-drywall, I would just say this is the, getting a moisture, make sure a moisture meter is involved. What they have their, the inspector has, oh my goodness, why am I blanking on it? It's like something they point out the wall to identify if there is any water, moisture, or anything going on there. It's a certain name to it, but I'm completely blanking on it right now. But make sure that gets done if it's post drywall, right? At least, just so you know, especially if this home was sitting for some time and no one was occupying it, then who knows what was really going on in that home at that time. But just know that you have that ability to do that, right? And then let's see what we have here. Oh, we don't need to talk about that. Oh, another mistake I see. So this was a post that actually I saw on social media, and I'll talk about it, but I don't really. I mean, I'm sure this is happening everywhere, regardless. I think it's still gonna happen. Anyways, I don't really see it as a mistake, but if you're a first-time home buyer, you shouldn't be walking out trying to purchase a home by yourself. There's just too much stuff that goes into it that you're probably gonna lose yourself in a sense of not lose yourself in a bad way, just like get confused and be like, yo, you really should have hired an agent or something. So the other mistake that I do see is, or at least this person made a post about, was not using a real estate agent. And mind you, I don't know if the individual she was referring to was a first time home buyer or whether they purchased multiple homes, but they were literally under contract for, based off of the story, a $3 million home. So I pray and hope that that was not their very first home that they were purchasing, because woo, that would be a pretty costly mistake if something goes wrong there. But using your agent is going to really help you identify and making sure that you have another set of eyes to help you navigate that entire process, especially if it's your first time, right? I always say first, second time, have somebody by your side. If you've been through it enough, then sure, knock yourself out. Go about it, yourself, and do what you have to do. But at least for the first and second time, you should have somebody by your side to navigate it. It's like, I don't want to compare it to, like, okay, I'll use this analogy, right? If you don't know how to fix your car, are you actually going to try to fix it, or are you just going to go to the dealership? Or maybe not the dealership, just go to the mechanic to get that repair. Maybe the mechanic fixes the issue 2, 3 times for you until you're like, I see what you did. I'm just going to do it myself now, right? That is what I would say, if especially if you want that kind of tool under your, even that skill under your belt, then sure, go ahead and do that. But other than that, I would say just go to the professional, allow them to have their second eyes over your shoulder to make sure that everything is going the way it should be, and you won't be screwed, because I mean, we're talking about six-figure asset, for crying out loud. 6 figures. Yeah. It's nothing light there. Any questions in the meantime? No questions? Phenomenal. I'll continue through. This is a question that I have gotten before. I actually heard it yesterday. And then the question was, should I pay off debt before trying to purchase? The lender can guide you on that, and it's all going to be depending on your debt to income, right? If you have a high debt to income, then yeah, sure, it makes sense. But if you're pretty, if you're pretty good and you're in a position where you don't have too much debt, then it may not make sense. You can just utilize that same dollars to purchase the home, right? To do your inspections, your appraisals, your closing costs, your down payment, for crying out loud, or just put it aside to make, put it aside as a fund for maintenance, or you can just use that money to go ahead and make your monthly payments for your mortgage, right? So it's really going to be on a case by case scenario, just because if you have a lot, then it makes sense. But if you don't have a lot, then it's not necessary. But the lender will be the best person to talk through with that scenario, just because they have your information. They'll know exactly what your ratio is. If I'm not mistaken, let me actually double check, because I don't know off the top of my head what the FHA ratio is. And I know that the FHA ratio is the highest. So their standard limits is 31% front end ratios. And then the back end, so essentially 43% is like their highest, but some lenders you'll probably find be able to go to 50%. If you're up at that 50% mark though, just know that the lender's probably baking in some of that interest rate in there. So you're going to have a higher interest rate essentially. But yeah, 43%, I would say, your debt to income ratio, which however much you bring in comparison to whatever your debts are. So your credit cards, car loans, any loans, in fact, student loans, I mean, you name it. Those are the kind of things that it's considered. I'm sure there's calculators all over the web, so I won't spend too much time on that question, but it's just something that I did here yesterday, actually, and just wanted to go ahead and provide that with you all. Yeah, we're getting a little quiet room, so if you stick around to this point, good for you. Really good for you, because I'm going to share with you the top 10 best metros for a first-time homebuyer. All right, so let's go ahead and get into it. And we're just going to look at the cities, right? And essentially, why did those cities really stand out? So we have Oklahoma City, right, with their average housing cost being below 30%. Average cost below 30% of income. Okay. Huntington, Ashland, what's that, West Virginia? West Virginia, what is this? West Virginia, Kentucky, and Ohio? I'm so confused on this place right here. Okay. Lubbock. Where is this, though? Texas? Okay. Interesting. Texas. Where is this in Texas? That's quite interesting. Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Right, so these are the cities specifically. Pittsburgh, St. Louis, Jackson, Mississippi, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Chicago, specifically Naperville, Elgin. Right, so there you have it. In fact, I can even take things a step further and share with you all the places that are experiencing the most, what's it called? The most price cuts. Let me see if I can pull that up for you real quick. I actually don't have that. Okay, but I know that Denver, Portland, Oregon, or Oregon, which one is it? You guys let me know. And Indianapolis are the top metros, which we just saw Indianapolis on that list as well for some of the top places. Did y'all not see the list? Oh, that would be unfortunate. Interesting. That's why it was laggy. Hopefully y'all saw it. All right. I did get sidetracked. I actually want to check this and make sure y'all did see it. And no one's in the room to tell me, because y'all all being quiet tonight. I don't think you guys saw it. Oh, yeah, you did. Okay, great. So, I did my duty there. But yes, so there's 3 metros, Denver, Portland, and Indianapolis. Those places are seeing the most price cuts right now. So, if you're in those markets or trying to buy in those markets, then you know what to do there. You know what to do. I would take a few more questions, but man, y'all being quiet tonight. I wonder what it is. But I mean, if y'all quiet, then I'm gonna check up the deuces too. Then, so tonight we covered a lot of mistakes. We even dropped some tidbits, right? Some nice. I'm gonna start calling them that, right? Some tidbits, which are my tips. Especially the rate lock one. If you heard that one, then you got a good one. I honestly would say that one was not expected, but you got one that you can go ahead and take away. But yes, we dropped a lot of information in terms of mistakes that we're still seeing today that is being made, whether it's in 2025 or even general mistakes, right? Because 2020, those 2025 mistakes can, of course, roll over into becoming general mistakes, but it's just what I'm seeing at this current time. So go ahead and make sure you don't make some of those mistakes like skipping your pre-approval or looking at homes before you actually get pre-approved. Don't ignore those builder incentives, please. Because they're just right now too good. They're too good to pass on. At least look at them to see if it makes sense for you. That's the least that you can do. But with all that being said, if you do need help in your local market, whether it's in North Carolina or not, because I service North Carolina, I can help you do so. Just go ahead and I think the link will show up here shortly. Yep, it will. Just go ahead and reach out to me and let me know that, hey, I'm looking to purchase, whether you're 3, 6, 9, 12 months plus out. Just let me know. That way we can create the game plan for you and make sure that you purchase when your time arrives. If you're outside of North Carolina, I can always partner you up and partner you up with a partner agent of ours that we know that will go ahead and take care of you in that local market. And if neither one of those things are, maybe you're too far along your line, you just kind of want to dip your toes to really understand what's going on in the market, you can always either tap into here on a weekly or bi-weekly, whenever it is I'm doing these streams, and just get the information. Or I have a newsletter that I pretty much sum up whatever the news that I've come across in that week and share with you all. Whether it's national really based, but of course in some of those newsletters I'm able to get area specific, just because of what's specifically happening in certain areas. But thank you all for tuning. Again, my name is Roney Polynice. You'll see on my channel Ron, just because if I spelled my name actually, most of y'all won't even be able to pronounce it. Been happening all my life. But remember, a great home, a great process, and a great experience in purchasing a home starts with great decisions and making sure that you're well prepared. Alrighty, peace. I'm out of here. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all night.